The night my life was sold like a piece of livestock, I swore to myself that I would never bow to him, no matter what. He was a tyrant, a monster cloaked in the guise of a man, who had purchased me from my impoverished family as if I were nothing more than an object to be bartered. My parents didn't even look at me as they accepted his money. Their faces were masks of shame and desperation. But for me, it wasn't just about losing my home or being torn away from everything familiar. It was about losing me. From the moment I stepped into his opulent mansion, I felt the suffocating weight of his control. Every corner of the house seemed to whisper secrets of women who had come before me, women whose fates remained shrouded in mystery. On our wedding night, as he stood over me with those cold, calculating eyes, I learned the truth. I wasn't his first wife. There had been others women who had tried to resist him, to escape his iron grip. None of them survived. Their disappearances were whispered about in hushed tones by the servants, but no one dared speak aloud the horrors they suspected. That night, as he leaned closer, his breath hot against my ear, I could feel the ghostly presence of those women surrounding us, their silent screams echoing through the room. They weren't just gone, they had been erased, consumed by his insatiable need for dominance. His hands moved possessively over my body, not out of love, but as though marking his territory. I clenched my fists under the covers, forcing myself not to flinch. To him, I was no longer a person, I was property. And yet, deep inside, something within me refused to break. I vowed then that I would find a way to reclaim my freedom, even if it cost me everything. Every day, I walked a tightrope between seduction and survival. My plan was simple, yet perilous. Make him fall for me, let his guard down, and seize the moment to strike back. But the line between captivating him and being discovered grew thinner with each passing hour. His eyes, cold, calculating, and always watching, were like daggers piercing through my every move. He wasn't just a man. He was a predator who thrived on control, and I had to tread carefully if I wanted to outwit him. One evening, as he attended a business meeting downstairs, I decided it was time to search for the knife I knew he kept hidden somewhere in our bedroom. It wasn't just a weapon, it was my lifeline, the only thing that could level the playing field between us. I moved silently, my heart pounding so loudly I feared he might hear it from another room. Just as my fingers brushed against the cool metal of the blade tucked beneath a stack of papers, the door creaked open. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. There he stood, his towering frame filling the doorway, his gaze sharp enough to cut steel. For a split second, panic seized me, but instinct kicked in. I straightened myself, smoothing down my dress as though nothing were amiss. "I was looking for my necklace," I said softly, forcing a smile onto my trembling lips. "You gave it to me last week, remember? It seems to have gone missing." His expression darkened, but after a tense pause, he simply nodded and turned away. That night, I lay awake, replaying the moment over and over in my mind. One misstep, one wrong word, and I would have been dead. My next strategy was riskier still: jealousy. If there was one thing this tyrant couldn't tolerate, it was the thought of losing possession of what he believed belonged to him, including me. So I began orchestrating subtle encounters with other men at social gatherings, during dinner parties, anywhere he could see. A lingering glance here, a casual touch on the arm there. It was all calculated to ignite his possessive fury. And it worked, perhaps too well. One night, when I lingered a little too long talking to a handsome guest at a gala, his rage erupted like a storm. He dragged me into a secluded hallway, his hands clamping around my neck with terrifying force. "Do you think you can humiliate me?" he snarled, his voice low and venomous. "You are mine, do you understand?" I clawed at his wrists, gasping for air, but even then I refused to beg. Instead, I met his gaze with defiance. letting him know that no amount of violence would break me. When he finally released me, his breathing ragged, I saw something flicker in his eyes, something deeper than anger. Doubt. Vulnerability. It was the crack I needed to wedge myself further into his psyche. At first, he was nothing more than a shadow, a cold, unfeeling specter who ruled my life with an iron fist. His eyes never softened, his voice never wavered. Every word he spoke dripped with authority and disdain. He didn't care about me as a person, he cared only about control. I was a possession to be owned, a trophy to display on his arm. When I defied him, even in the smallest ways, his response was swift and brutal. Once, when I accidentally knocked over a glass at dinner, his hand shot out so fast it felt like lightning striking. The sting of his slap echoed through the room, leaving my cheek burning and my pride shattered. But what terrified me most wasn't the violence, it was the way he watched me afterward, as if gauging how much I could endure before breaking completely. But then something changed. Subtly, almost imperceptibly, cracks began to form in his armor. It started with the way he looked at me, no longer just with ownership, but with fascination. He noticed things about me that no one else ever had. The way I tilted my head when I thought deeply, the faint tremor in my hands when I was nervous, the fire in my eyes when I challenged him. One night, after hours of silence between us, he broke down. "I've never loved anyone," he confessed, his voice low and raw, like sandpaper scraping against stone. You make me lose control." For a moment, I thought I saw vulnerability in him, a flicker of humanity beneath the monster's mask. But just as quickly, the darkness returned. His fingers tightened around my wrist, pulling me closer until our faces were inches apart. "And don't think for a second that I won't kill anyone who tries to take you from me," he growled, his breath hot against my skin. The threat hung heavy in the air, suffocating me. His gestures became gentler after that confession, though they only served to confuse me further. He would pull me into his arms without warning, pressing my head against his chest as if trying to absorb me into himself. At night, he whispered words that should have been sweet. "You're mine. No one will ever love you like I do," but they felt like chains wrapped tighter around my soul. Each tender touch sent shivers down my spine, not because I enjoyed them, but because I couldn't tell whether they were genuine or another layer of manipulation. Was he truly falling for me, or was this just another game? My mind raced with questions I couldn't answer. Every time he held me, I felt torn between disgust and curiosity, fear and pity. This man, this tyrant, was unraveling, and I wasn't sure which version of him was more dangerous, the cold, calculating monster, or the desperate, possessive lover. The realization hit me like a thunderclap one night as I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Despite all his declarations of love, his affection was still rooted in possession and control. He didn't want me. He wanted to mold me into something that fit his idea of perfection, a flawless wife, a devoted mother, a queen trapped in a gilded cage. His words were sweet, but they carried an undertone of suffocation. Every tender kiss felt like another layer of chains binding me to him. And then came the revelation that shattered whatever fragile trust I might have held for him. A whispered conversation between servants confirmed my worst fears. His first wife hadn't merely disappeared. She had tried to leave him, and he had driven her to her death, a chilling reminder of what awaited anyone who dared defy him. That knowledge burned inside me like acid, eating away at any lingering sympathy I might have felt for him. It wasn't enough anymore to play games or manipulate him. I needed to teach him a lesson about freedom, about the value of letting go. Freedom wasn't just a word. It was life itself, and he seemed incapable of understanding that. My resolve hardened into steel. If he wouldn't release me willingly, I would fight until my last breath to escape him. One evening, during yet another argument, I finally confronted him head on. "I will never belong to you," I spat, my voice trembling with fury. "Not if you continue to act like a tyrant. You can force me to stay here, but you'll never own my soul." For the first time since I'd known him, I saw something crack in his expression. His usual mask of arrogance slipped, revealing raw vulnerability beneath. Pain flickered in his eyes, followed by desperation. "Do you think I don't know how much I've hurt you?" he said hoarsely, gripping my shoulders tightly. "But I can't let you go. Don't you understand? I need you." His admission startled me, not because it was unexpected, but because it exposed the depth of his obsession. He wasn't just clinging to me out of love. He was consumed by fear, terrified of losing the only person who had ever truly challenged him. But his fear wasn't mine to bear. I stepped back, breaking free from his grasp. "You talk about needing me," I replied coldly, "but you don't even know what it means to respect someone. Love isn't ownership, and until you learn that, you'll always be alone." The room fell silent except for the sound of our ragged breathing. In that moment, I saw the full weight of his helplessness crash over him. He sank onto the edge of the bed, burying his face in his hands, and for the first time, I glimpsed not the monster, but the broken man behind the cruelty. The storm outside mirrored the tempest within me as I stood there, drenched not by rain, but by years of suppressed rage and fear. The wind howled like a wounded beast, battering against the windows of the mansion where I had been imprisoned for so long. Lightning illuminated the room in brief, blinding flashes, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. In my trembling hand, I clutched the knife I had finally found after months of searching, a cold, gleaming symbol of both hope and despair. My heart pounded like a war drum, each beat echoing the battle between survival and surrender. This was it, the moment I had dreamed of and dreaded in equal measure. He entered the room slowly, his silhouette framed by the flickering light of the storm. His eyes locked onto mine, sharp and piercing, yet tinged with something unfamiliar, vulnerability. For once, he wasn't the towering figure of dominance I had come to fear. Instead, he seemed almost human, fragile even. But I couldn't afford to let my guard down, not now, not ever. "You think you can control me forever?" I spat, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and resolve. "I'd rather die than live as your slave." His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he might lunge at me, RIP the knife from my grasp, and crush whatever defiance remained in me. Instead, he froze, his gaze dropping to the weapon in my hand. There was no mistaking the fear in his eyes. It wasn't fear of death, but fear of losing me. "Do you really believe killing yourself will solve anything?" he asked quietly, his voice rough with emotion. "If you leave this world, you'll take everything good in me with you." The words caught me off guard. Was this another manipulation, another attempt to twist my emotions? Or was it possible that beneath the layers of cruelty and control, there was still a man capable of feeling? I gripped the knife tighter, its edge pressing into my palm as if reminding me of its purpose. "Then why did you force me here? Why did you destroy every chance I had at freedom?" My voice cracked under the weight of unshed tears. "You made me hate you." For the first time, I saw him falter. He took a step back, running a hand through his disheveled hair. When he spoke again, his tone was softer, almost pleading. "Because I was afraid," he admitted, his shoulders slumping as though the weight of his confession was too much to bear. "Afraid of being alone, of losing someone who saw through all my masks. You changed me, whether you wanted to or not. And yes, I used violence because I didn't know how else to keep you close. But I was wrong." His admission shattered something inside me, perhaps the last remnants of hatred I had clung to for so long. Yet forgiveness felt impossible. How could I trust someone who had caused me so much pain? Words mean nothing unless they're followed by actions, I said sharply, raising the knife slightly. Prove it. Prove that you've changed. He hesitated, then slowly lowered himself to his knees before me. The gesture was jarring, surreal, and active submission from a man who had once ruled over me like a god. I won't control you anymore, he vowed, his voice steady despite the storm raging around us. But give me one chance to show you that I'm more than the monster you see. Let me prove that I love you, truly and without conditions. The irony of the situation struck me like a blow. Here he was, offering me freedom when just moments ago I had been prepared to end my life to escape him. But freedom given willingly was different from freedom stolen. Still doubt gnawed at me. Could he truly change, or was this merely another tactic to bind me to him? The storm outside began to subside, leaving behind an unsettling calm. I lowered the knife slightly, though I didn't release it entirely. One mistake, I warned, my voice barely above a whisper, and I'll leave. Forever. Love, I realized as I stood there staring at the man who had once been my captor, could never be forced or taken by strength. It was not something that could be carved from stone or forged with chains. It was delicate, like a fragile flower that needed sunlight and care to bloom. And what he had tried to do, imprisoning me, controlling me, shaping me into his perfect doll, was not love. It was possession, a hollow imitation of what true affection should be. If you want us to move forward, I said slowly, each word deliberate and heavy with meaning, you must understand this. I will never belong to you in the way you cannot own a person, not their body, not their soul. He looked at me then, his eyes reflecting a mixture of pain and resolve. For so long, he had lived under the illusion that dominance equaled devotion, but now, faced with the possibility of losing me forever, he seemed willing to unlearn everything he thought he knew about relationships. I don't know how to give you freedom, he admitted, his voice trembling slightly, but I'm willing to learn if you'll teach me. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same man who had once wielded power over me like a weapon was now asking for guidance. Part of me wanted to laugh, another part to cry. But deep down, I saw sincerity in his plea, a raw vulnerability that reminded me why I had stayed this long, despite all the suffering. Still, trust would not come easily. This isn't just about words, I warned, stepping closer until we were mere inches apart. You have to prove it every single day. Treat me as an equal partner, not as property. If you slip back into your old ways even once, I'll walk away, and this time, nothing will bring me back. For a moment, silence hung between us, broken only by the sound of our breathing. Then, hesitantly, he reached out, his hand brushing mine. This time, there was no force, no urgency, just a tentative touch, as though afraid I might shatter beneath his fingertips. I won't fail you again, he whispered, and though I couldn't fully believe him yet, I chose to hope. Hope that perhaps, buried beneath layers of cruelty and arrogance, there was still a man capable of change. And so, with cautious optimism, I gave him one final chance, not because I owed him anything, but because sometimes even monsters deserve redemption.